The Bills getting themselves a wide receiver, but at what cost? Welcome to Sports Talk Live Buffalo. Plus, I'm Sports Director John Scott, and in the flesh, my goodness, I'm not used to looking to my left. I feel like I'm, Zoolander? He couldn't go to his left or something like that. It's Vic Carucci, the Hall of Famer.
Well, we've been long-lost friends here, and I said, will there ever come a time when I get to find this place? And it's been a struggle. I found it for the second time this week, though.
I appreciate you making me look even paler than I do naturally. Thank you for that. Brandon Beane wheeling and dealing to address the position Joe Brady defending to me just a week ago at the NFL Combine. There's so many layers to this trade, and Vic and I, we are going to talk through them all here. Plus, there's still cuts that need to be made to get them under the salary cap, who could be in the mix for free agency as well as the draft here. We are going to get into all of that. But, Vic, of course, we have to start with the trade here. Right. It is DJ Moore to the Bills and a fifth-round pick. Chicago is acquiring a Bills second-round pick. I want to start here with just the player himself. DJ Moore, the player, and what you think the Bills are getting in acquiring him.
They're getting a good football player. They're getting a very good receiver, and on a team where that is a weakness, and regardless of whatever you heard from Joe Brady or anyone trying to defend the state of the position, it needed help, and the Bills knew that. And I think this represents significant in the way of how they approached it. Does it qualify as any kind of blockbuster? No. Even though a second-round pick is a premium pick to devote to the position, but it tells me that in the Bills' mind, he fits on so many layers. First on the talent piece, he qualifies for them as a number one receiver, even if he might not for teams that are better at the position, but the Bills aren't good there. So he's their immediate number one. And then here's the other key to all of this. Joe Brady has history with him, and this football team values probably as much as, if not more than any team in the league, history between players and coaches.
Yeah, a few years. Brady didn't make it a full 2 years as the offensive coordinator in Carolina, but Moore had some really good years. Over 1,100 yards receiving in both 2020 and both 2021 when Brady was there. 4 or 5 times in his career, Moore's gone over 1,000 yards. He averages 79 receptions and over 1,000 yards in his 8-year career. He's productive. His past season in Chicago, the least productive that he has had in the NFL. And ironically enough, they were operating in sort of a similar fashion of the everybody eats with Rome Odunze, Luther Burden III, young receivers over there. Zacchaeus was another guy. Olamide Zacchaeus is another guy that was in the mix a little bit as well. You had some tight ends, and you contribute that maybe a little bit to his lower production. He also had some drops and some issues there. It's an interesting way for him to depart with still having the return of a second-round pick.
Yeah, and I think you've got to at least consider, and maybe more than at least consider, but just look at the fact that he was there with Ben Johnson. He was there with one of the foremost offensive minds, passing game minds in the NFL, who decided that this team was better to move on from DJ Moore. Also, Caleb Williams. He had, this young rising quarterback who I think we all safely agree has more outstanding years ahead, and he certainly had his breakthrough this past season. And to take that weapon away from him, but believe that the younger talent that's on that roster is good enough and can prosper, allow Caleb Williams to prosper, is telling too. So what do the Bills see in this? Well, they see greater value certainly than the Bears did. That's one. And two, this is for them getting more paired with Josh Allen is the whole story. Finding a way to get Josh Allen a game-breaking threat on a regular basis. I don't know if Moore is consistently that, but he sure as heck is, pun intended, more of that than any receiver the Bills have.
Here's a reason maybe Chicago was ready to move off of DJ Moore, and here is the reason why I take issue with the trade. I'm not a fan of it. You paid a second-round pick for a guy who's about to be 29, 30 years old, and these are the cap numbers that come with it. He's getting paid as the 13th highest paid receiver in the entire NFL.
Right.
We can all agree DJ Moore is not the 13th best wide receiver in the National Football League. We also know how contracts work. That number will yo-yo, but I wouldn't put him in even the top 25 or the top 30. You're paying him a lot of money on a team that does not have the cap space to pay him a lot of money. It's $24.5 million fully guaranteed this year, another $15.5 million guaranteed the following 2 years. It's expected the Bills are going to do a restructure, clearing about $17 million here. But these numbers are very gaudy and say you are committing to DJ Moore not this season, not just next season, but at least 3 years when he's in his early 30s. And we kind of see that 29, 30, 31-year range when the receivers start to take the dip.
Yeah, look, it is fair to call this in some ways a salary dump by Chicago when you've got all these all the guaranteed money that's involved here. Put it on someone else's plate, let it be someone else's problem. And when I say that, it's going to transition to this, John. This could very well be someone else's problem on the Bills. Right now, Brandon Beane, Joe Brady, I mean, I don't think they're looking for any kind of, they can't be looking for any kind of long-term build here. This team with Josh Allen, this Josh Allen / Super Bowl window is open now. And the move from Sean McDermott to Brady, the move with Brandon Beane taking over the whole Super Bowl, the whole football operation, they hope it's a Super Bowl operation, tells me that you are going to do bold things because you can't wait for good things or young guys to develop. And I know we're going to get into what it means in terms of their draft strategy, but it's clear that this team is not going to wait for somebody to come along to do it. They feel their best chance to get someone who could help them now is this guy.
I call it desperate. That's honest to God.
Yeah.
I'm calling it a desperate move.
Yeah.
You see these trades with wide receivers of far greater stature or just players in general, and you're like, only a fourth, only a third, only a fifth? And the reason that the return is not as high is because you are latched on to contracts that are like DJ Moore. To me, this is a fine deal to make and a fine player to acquire if you're giving up a third, fourth, or fifth round pick. For a team like the Bills in desperate need of premium assets at cost-efficient prices, trading away a second round pick and assuming this sort of a contract is desperate and negligence.
Which, we'll see if, obviously we'll see if it's negligence in terms of his performance. But I would add this, because I think the reporting, correct me if I'm wrong, initially had the Bills given up more of a mid-round choice.
Yes.
Okay. When I saw that, when this was first reported elsewhere, Adam Schefter, Ian Rappaport, the usual suspects reporting it, when I heard that, I said, that's about right. I said, and I was calling it. I know we were having conversations back and forth as the news was breaking, and with our assistant news director here at Channel 2. And I think I used the word modest for the type of player and deal that you'd make for him. So it's not. Second round pick changes that. But in the grand scheme of things, big picture, this is for those who said, okay, what about A.J. Brown? And, what about making, a splash type of trade? Well, it's a splash trade in terms of what they gave up, but in terms of what they value and what they think is better for the fit is this guy versus someone who, of course, was part of a lot of drama in Philadelphia.
Now, you mentioned fit. DJ Moore comes in, and again, he's a good football player. There's no denying it. To me, my issue is the return and the investment into it and all of that here. What do you think Moore can do to the wide receiver room as it's currently constructed?
Yeah, first of all, his history with Joe Brady and history with the style that Brady wants in terms of the pass game and its structure is vital, because that is something younger players, and assuming Keon Coleman is still part of this team after the team owner not only throws him under the bus, runs over him a couple times in the Joe Brady in the Sean McDermott firing press conference. I think a guy like Keon Coleman, other younger players on this roster can benefit from his presence. He walks in with the cachet of a top guy. Joe Brady and the chemistry that they have together is going to matter, because even though Brady is known to the players on this team and the offensive players on this team as the OC, as the former OC, he's in a different place as the head coach. And I think it's going to be important to have someone like DJ Moore sort of reiterate to the other players, you got the right guy in charge here in Joe Brady. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is just contribution and impact. I still think it's going to be a balanced football team. I still think the running game is going to matter, because that's how Joe Brady approaches it. And if they don't, I think they're crazy to put it all on Josh Allen's arm. But Moore is going to deliver those plays, I believe, or the intention is, that they couldn't get from anyone else on this roster on a regular basis.
The thing I like about adding Moore, someone like him, is I think it slots everyone more in their appropriate role. It slots Khalil Shakir as, hey, this is maybe your secondary option. It can slot Keon Coleman as your fourth option. And I think that's a guy that I think in those roles, Josh Palmer in a third, things like that, that's better how they are. Quickly here, we know Brandon Beane is an aggressive guy.
Yeah.
Is he done? Does he have to be done? What do you think is next?
Oh, I would never think he's done with anything. Now, in terms of the receiver position, it may be difficult to see him doing anything vis-a-vis the draft. But he's not done addressing this roster in a big way. There's still, obviously, big defensive areas that have to be dealt with. But in terms of the offense, what else can they do? You got an offensive line that's going to probably need some attention. We'll see what they do with restructuring contracts like Dawson Knox and others. And I think all in all, that guy, as we're looking at right now, is just beginning. He's just rolling up his sleeves to do more.
And maybe we'll touch on it after the break. I know you have a feeling priority number 1, 2, or 3 is actually getting back that second-round pick that he traded away. A whole lot of talking just about one move for one player. Coming up, Vic and I shifting our attention to what maybe those next dominoes may be. You're watching Sports Talk Live Plus right here on WGRZ Plus. Welcome back to Sports Talk Live Plus. We know the Bills are not done making moves. New NFL league year beginning next Wednesday. That means the Bills need to be cap compliant by then. That Moore contract really pushes them even farther above the cap here. The expectation is that they're going to restructure him, clearing $17 million, lowering his cap hit. But even with that, Vic, there are still so many moves that need to be made. We've kind of mentioned it in the past here, but let's show you a list of people that I think are probably likely cap casualties because of the savings they bring. Dawson Knox, the guy carries a $17 million cap hit. He's one of my favorite people to talk to in the room. He's awesome, a beloved Bill here. They're not keeping him at that contract. A simple cut like that, $9.5 million plus you're saving there. Curtis Samuel, no need to really dive into that. We know how failed of an experience that has been, and you save $6 million there. Tyler Bass, an interesting one. I know you've thought that that's a potential direction they could go. You're paying a kicker nearly $3 million here, $5 million cap hit. And Taylor Rapp, I know that would then leave a void at the opposite safety position, but they drafted Jordan Hancock. Safety is a spot I think you can either address middle rounds of the draft, you could address marginally in free agency here. So I think saving $3 million for Rapp is a possibility as well. They seem to restructure Josh Allen every single year. That'll save them $12 million as well. If they want to shave more money, Ed Oliver is carrying a $24 million cap hit. A restructure is $10 million, Vic, but you think another move is possible? I think it makes perfect sense. And the move that they just made for DJ Moore and giving up that second-round pick, I think the thought behind that, this is speculation. I'm not delivering any breaking news here, but I think this, from a speculative standpoint, it makes sense to make a trade of a higher-end guy like Ed Oliver, who I don't think fits what their defensive scheme is going to look like in 2026 and I guess beyond, assuming that that's what it's going to be. And they move on from him because, again, you're a 3-4 defense. You need a bigger space-hogging kind of DT, big guy in the middle. That's not him. He's a penetrating, quicker player, and he fit that scheme of Sean McDermott, that four-man front, Bobby Babich primarily as a base.
I think you can get a second round from a team that wants that kind of player to fit that kind of scheme.
He's still relatively young. I know he's dealt with some health issues here,
Right.
but he's someone that I think has not ever lived up to the top 10 pick. I did not agree with the size contract that he was
Right.
given at that time either. He had his best year going into the contract year, but we haven't seen more than just flashes and inconsistencies, I think, for the level of player that he needs to be. So I would be in favor of that, especially with the emergence of Deion Walker.
And maybe it's a conditional pick. Maybe you start out with something a little bit lower, and then based on his play time and production on the next team, it could jump up to a second. Just a way to, I know the idea is to get the second for this year's draft. Maybe it becomes, maybe it's not a second, or maybe it's another pick, a lower pick that can be packaged into something that allows them to move into the second round. I just find it hard to believe that Brandon Beane is going to allow himself to go through the second round without making a choice.
And I think they need to not just clear space to be cap compliant, but to have some operating space. Here are some free agents here, and I'm really focusing on the defensive side of things because that's where so much of the change is going. John Franklin Myers, maybe too pricey for them. Has the Denver connection with Jim Leonard, so that's a reason there. Khalil Mack, maybe he's cheaper at the back end of his career, still had some production when he was healthy last year. Cameron Jordan, just on the open market now. I think he's another one. Draymond Jones, these is flexible guys, and Alex Anzalone in Detroit is a guy that now as you're going to the 3-4, maybe there's some flexibility there. These are just names that I kind of picked out there that I think would be good, but I think the bigger thing, Vic, is this is the direction that probably they have to sink their assets into.
Yeah, there's no question. They have to find fits for what this defense is going to look like. It is, I've said it before and I'll say it over again, that this team is going to have a major overhaul defensively. Schematically is one thing, but you better have the players to do it. And it's not 2 or 3 or 4 guys. It's a lot. You're going to be forced to keep some people that you feel can transition to this defense, but it's not going to be a whole lot of them, and they're not going to be your core. You're remaking the core of this defense.
I'll just add in here, I still think A.J. Epinesa is someone I would be in favor of bringing back. I think he has that ability to maybe fit into that scheme. The other way to make some moves is the draft, Vic, and you have a list of guys that now at the first round, 26th currently, with wide receiver, the big move with DJ Moore, maybe off the table, and maybe the direction you think they could go there.
Yeah, a lot of mock drafts are being redone because most of the mockers over the last several weeks have been having a receiver come to the Bills. But that's no longer the case. I think this is a team that has to be looking at an edge rusher type of player, have a guy that can, and the interesting part of it is you don't have, back to what I was saying about the scheme, you don't have, and I know it's not going to be up on our screen, I guess, so I'm going to have to go to it here, but some of the people that I think are potential for this would be, okay, we got it now. Hey, all right, I did start with a safety. Emmanuel McNeil Warren, he's a safety from Toledo.
I like him.
I like him a lot. I know you mentioned the idea that maybe they get safety in the latter portion, and this guy might be available after the first round, but he's a guy who I think could be there. Kendrick Falk, edge rusher from Auburn, a guy that I think you could look at possibly being there, and he has the ability to, really get after the quarterback, could make an immediate impact, but needs some development. And then T.J. Parker, Clemson, an edge rusher. He's probably the best edge rusher left on the board at that point. And look, the history of the way they've been drafting, the way Brandon Beane sees things, I think they go as much, if not more, for need as they do value. So I don't think they're looking to make necessarily the value pick here. Zion Young, edge rusher, Missouri. Who is, he's more of a developmental player. Again, 26th pick, low in the first round. Not necessarily going to be a guy who jumps in and starts for you. And then the last name I got on this list, Cassius Howell. He's an edge rusher from Texas A&M. He is the classic high motor, big time effort guy and versatile. His pass coverage, dropping into coverage, which is a thing edge rushers do in the 3-4. Not the best, but can be developed.
Those last two names, Jordan Reed from ESPN, who I had on the show last week after talking to him at the Combine,
right.
He mentioned Zion Young and Cassius Howell as potential guys, maybe not even first round, but that second or third round as well, that could be in the Bills' plans and fit Jim Leonard's scheme as well. So look at you, Vic.
Wow. And I didn't even see that.
Yeah, thanks a lot for watching, buddy.
Sorry.
My goodness gracious.
I was too busy trying to get sunburned.
All right, so that's the Bills side of things. Big moves already being made all over the NFL this week. Vic and I giving our thoughts on a few, yes, including the future of Stephon Diggs. That's after the break. Welcome back to Sports Talk Live Buffalo Plus here. Quick Sabres update. Tied with the Pittsburgh Penguins 1-1 after the first. Each team with a shorthanded goal. Also on the trade front, Colton Parayko saying, no thanks, I'm not waiving my no trade clause. So that deal with St. Louis, null and void. Now back to the NFL, because there was already a flurry of stuff all around the league before the Bills making their decision to trade for DJ Moore. And the first one we'll start with is a former Bills wide receiver. The tenure for Stephon Diggs in New England, short-lived, is going to be released before the beginning of the league year next week. He actually had a solid season, Vic. Over 1,000 yards, was their number one guy, showed flashes. But we know what comes with Stephon Diggs. It's the age, it's the number, and of course, it's the off-the-field legal issues.
Yeah, I think this is one of those circumstances where the Pats got just what they could squeeze out of him for 1 year. And I don't see this as something, obviously, that makes sense for the Bills, a return of Stephon Diggs. And it's not because he couldn't be helpful, but again, after the DJ Moore trade, and I think back to the whole, you got a first-year head coach who is literally, Mike Vrabel was a veteran coach coming to his first year as head coach of the Patriots. Different circumstances. Someone will obviously give this guy another shot somewhere. It's not going to be Buffalo.
I will be curious, though, when, Vic. I think the legal stuff is a really big cloud hanging over him. And for a guy that's 32, 33, dealing with potential felony charges for an alleged incident here, I just don't know if it's worth it to latch on to him at this point in time.
Yeah, right. I mean, I think you evaluate everything.
All right.
When it comes to that.
Chiefs, big trade. Trent McDuffie going to the Rams in return. 1st, 5th, 6th this year, a 3rd next year as well. What are the Chiefs doing, Vic?
This tells me that that Brett Veach, their GM, feels accumulating those draft assets and having a lot of them is a must for a team that has a lot to fix, that has, many holes and things to repair. And McDuffie, giving up on him, while a surprise because he's that good, but the return on that is not the surprise.
It's a pattern here, Vic. Tyreek Hill, you don't want to pay him, you trade him. L'Jarius Sneed, you don't want to pay him, you trade him.
Right.
And now they do it with Trent McDuffie. An interesting course of action for the Kansas City Chiefs, who missed the playoffs last year. That'll do it for this edition of Sports Talk Live Buffalo Plus. With Vic, I'm John. We'll see you next week.